Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name's Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commander Scott Palmer. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this service across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of Sacred Heart Primary School, Key, Victoria. Could I ask you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem? Students, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private William Charles Frederick Penner. Popularly known as Will, William Penner was born in Eaglehawk, Victoria on the 14th of September 1896, the only son of William and Mary Penner. His father worked in the mines for many years, becoming manager of the Clarence United Mine. Will attended the local state school at Eaglehawk before following in his father's footsteps, working at the Clarence United Mine, and becoming a braceman, looking after the kibble, skip or cage at the mouth of the mine shaft. He also became closely associated with the Sunday school of the Sailors' Gully Mission and was known as an industrious and reliable workman and a young man with a genial disposition which won for him the respect and esteem of all with whom he came in contact. The young William Penner enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in July 1915. As he was only 18 years old at the time, he did so with his father's consent. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas on board the troopship Demosthenes in December 1915. Private Penner left Australia with reinforcements to the 21st Battalion, but arrived in Egypt as the AIF was undergoing a period of reorganisation and training. As part of this process, he was transferred to the 57th Battalion. He continued training in Egypt until June 1916, when his battalion left for France. Shortly after arriving in France, Private Penner wrote a letter to his father, saying he was in good health and at the time of writing was within hearing of the big guns. The 57th Battalion entered the front line in a quieter part of the front line in an area known as Rue de Bois. Although not an active part of the front, the area was still subject to heavy artillery duels between the two sides. On the 19th of August 1916, the 57th Battalion came under heavy bombardment. Penner was standing at his post as the fire was easing when a shell fell into the trench just behind him. He was killed instantly. His mate, Private Albert Kirkham, wrote a letter to Penner's family to say, "It is with the greatest sympathy that I write this short note on behalf of the boys of C Company and myself, who were mates with Will ever since we first went into camp. It was an awful shock to me when some of Will's mates came around to me and told me of the sad news of his death. I am Will's mate, and more than that. We were more like brothers." William Penner was buried in the Rue de Bois cemetery in Fleurbaix, France. He was 19 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private William Charles Frederick Penner, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.